Hello friends, welcome back. I am Vivekanandan. So this year's Nobel Prize for Economics 2019 has been given to an Indian who is none other than Mr. Abhijit Banerjee, and this particular Nobel Prize is also shared with two other people. One more person is his wife, who is Mrs. Esther Duflo, and another person, Mr. Michael Kreemer. And in today's video, let's discuss about the reasons why this Nobel Prize for Economics has been given to Mr. Abhijit Banerjee. And one more important fact over here is it's been a while that an Indian received a Nobel Prize. So the last Indian who won a Nobel Prize was in the year 2014 by Mr. Kailash Satyamurthy for Nobel Prize of Peace, and previously it was in the year 2009 received by Mr. Sivaramakrishnan, and that is too in the field of chemistry. And so this year's Nobel Prize is won by an Indian for in the field of economics. So let's directly jump into it and discuss the reasons why this Nobel Prize has been given to Mr. Abhijit Banerjee. To start with, Abhijit Banerjee has done his education in India. His undergraduation in Presidency College and in masters in JNU of Delhi, and only then he left for the US for doing further research. So in this case, his education is a product of Indian education. So that is one thing which to be noted at the beginning of the video. And coming to the point, under economics, in which particular topic was he actually doing research? He was doing research in the field of developmental economics. So what is this development economics all about? So it is doing research in developing nations or underdeveloped nations to check how to reduce poverty in these nations. So this is all about developmental economics. So their core research is focused on reducing poverty in developing nations. So that is one thing which to be remembered. And what did they do to get this economics Nobel Prize? So how is their research different from all the previous other research? So the most important thing is their research is based on data. In other words, their research is called as empirical research, or they call it as evidence-based research. For example, if a government is formulating a policy to solve a problem, normally the governments might ideate, might anticipate that if we bring this policy, this particular problem can be solved. But what Abhijit is proposing is complete data. For example, if looking into the data, and if you can frame a policy, there is more chances of the policy becoming a success, or in other words, reaching the intended people who deserve that kind of a policy. Or their research is based on, like, after implementing the policy, what are the setbacks, what are the drawbacks, and they propose solutions and suggestions to correct it. So this is also one thing about their particular research. It is also about empirical research, and let me give you a lot of examples for understanding it even better. So to start with, let's take their contribution in the field of education. For example, in education in India, we provide a lot of emoluments, perks for students to enroll themselves in the schools. For example, starting in Tamil Nadu, it was all about midday meal schemes. Students being offered food, uniform, textbooks. It is completely taken care of by the government, and it is offered free. And because of this, what happens is, yes, there is student enrollment rate is going up, but what is the desired outcome? Is every student being benefited by that particular education being taught in schools? So they undertook this particular research, and their findings was not everybody who enrolls for school education is being benefited by the education being taught in the classrooms. What happens is only the bright students are benefited by this particular education. So the other persons, or in other words, mediocre students who take time to grasp this education, to get enlightened with the education given at the school, they take much more time, and they don't receive the full fruits of the education being taught in schools. So they have proposed various different alternatives, various different methodologies for teachers, so that the entire class, all the students inside a class benefit through the teaching methodologies. This is in the area of education. For example, in the area of health, what they have found in developing nations is the rich people, they do not take care of their health, thinking that in the later stages of their life, let me take care of my health and let me earn for today. This is how the rich think in developing nations. And what about the poor? The poor, they keep on postponing taking vaccinations, immunizations. For example, their thought process is like, let me spend the money which I have for today's bread, for today's food. Let me buy rice, wheat, and vegetables for having today's food. Let me not waste that money for going and vaccinating my children. So the health gets affected for both these kind of two categories of people. So this is in the area of health. And for example, in the area of microfinance, what is the biggest findings is, a few years before, there was a big talk of microfinance, giving a lot of money through microfinance, charging very less interest rates and bringing people out of poverty. But through their research, what they found is, for example, you give a person money to buy cows through microfinance. What happens here is, the person who goes and buys cows, it takes time for them to establish their business. For example, milking the cow and giving it to customers and then encashing it. But what happens is, the moment they receive the credit for starting their business, the very next month they have to repay the credit amount. So what happens is, it becomes very difficult for them to repay. So instead, what these trio they are proposing is, it is better that you provide them with the cows as an asset, as a gift, and you give them financial support for feeding the cows, to buy fodder and the rest of the things. And after 1 or 2 years, once they stabilize with their business, now give them finance, micro credit for expanding the business. So this would work out better compared to the earlier ideas. So there is various areas where they are providing ideas. The most important thing is with data, empirical based research. In fact, they have worked with many state governments like Tamil Nadu. They have come up with a various kind of a scheme supporting governments in India as well. That is one thing which to be noted. And where do they work now? They work with MIT in the United States, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. They have their own lab over there, Abdul Jamil Foundation there. Along, they work with another professor called as Sendil Mullainathan, and this is the current work. And they work with various developing nations like Kenya and other nations in Africa and Asia as well. And their data is being used by other organizations to reduce poverty. And one more notable fact is, Abhijit Banerjee is the 9th Indian to receive the Nobel Prize, and the last person to receive a Nobel Prize in economics was also from Bengal. He was none other than Mr. Amartya Sen. And at the same time, another interesting fact is, only 5 couples have actually won a Nobel Prize so far in the history of Nobel. And they are the 6th couple to receive the Nobel Prize. That is one thing to be noted. And finally, any nation which concentrates on research will actually grow well. For every hundreds of papers published on a topic, China publishes thousands of papers, and America publishes much more research papers. Today's India, the concentration is only towards getting a job and getting settled. Definitely, that might be the plight of the students, and that might be today's situation. But what we always have to remember is, any country which concentrates on research and comes out with indigenous technology to solve local problems, that particular country will develop fast. That country will be a self-reliant nation, and that country will be a prosperous nation. And research is something to be cherished, to be made use of. So we have so many economists all over the world, Indian economists all over the world, and we really have to encourage research in India, and that is the need of the hour. Share your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for watching this video. Have a good day.